Hey, Steph, welcome to Resilient Retail. Thank you so much for joining us. Can you start off and tell us a little bit about yourself and actually what you do here at Shopify?
Yeah, for sure. So about myself, I don't know that I have like that many interesting tidbits to share. I have a long history in retail. I've worked in retail for like probably 25-ish years at this point, I want to say. And I've worked in like many, many different places. I've been with Shopify for just over a year, and I work as part of the retail launch team. So just helping to get new merchants going live and launched with our platform. And I'm also the owner of Common People Shop, which I've had for 3 years. So, I mean, I don't know. That's like kind of me in a professional Cole's notes, but I have dogs. Does anything else
me
matter?
too.
I was like, does anything else matter? Just dogs.
Yeah, just dogs. That's all we need to talk about today.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about Common People Goods. How did you start the brand? What's the mission? How did that journey even happen to you opening your own retail store?
Yeah, so I guess like years and years and years ago, I was listening to the song Common People by the Pulp, or Pulp, I guess they're called. And I was like, this is going to make like a really good name for something someday if I ever like open my own business.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really know what it was going to be. I was like, it could be like a coffee shop or breakfast joint or like something like that. Or maybe it could be retail. And I went through retail for like a really, really long time and always had people kind of saying like, when are you going to do your own thing? Like, when are you going to do your own thing? When are you going to do your own thing? And it just never really felt like the timing was right, or that I didn't have like the right partner to do it with, or the money to do it. And then a few years ago, my partner and I, Kayla, she and I were kind of walking around Toronto and going in and out of like all these like small general stores and checking things out. And I was like, honestly, like we could do this. And she was like, yeah. And I was like, yeah. So
Yeah.
basically, it's kind of strange because it just kind of happened so quickly. And really the goal was when we started talking about it like more seriously, which was probably like 10 minutes later, we were just like, we're going to do this.
Waste no time.
Let's have this very serious conversation about it.
Yes.
We started talking about, the importance of it having something to do with our community. So figuring out, okay, where in Toronto could we have this? And like, how do we involve the community in a way that's like a little bit different than traditional retail? And then at that point, it really kind of became really, really important for us to find a space that was going to allow us to do things like workshops and host events and things like that. So that's basically kind of what started it all, was just this like random, walk down the street and saying, okay, how can we do this? But also, how do we incorporate like involving our community and really supporting like local and makers and Canadian and that type of stuff alongside kind of retail. So it wasn't 100% retail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why was that community focus so important to you guys, like right off the bat? I feel like it's something that a lot of stores kind of open up and then they think, oh, now we've got to get involved in the community now that we're open and we have products. But you guys put it at the absolute forefront of everything. You said this has to be a part of it. What was the motivation for that? And why did you think to include community so quickly?
The thing that I can tell you for sure was that the partnership of my partner and I was very, I guess, like we've had like our lanes this whole way. It's just like, this is my lane, this is your lane, this is what I handle, this is what you handle. And we have very different strengths. And that's really worked for us. But I really felt like my partner is like an extrovert and really focused on like marketing and like events and, getting to know people, and like is such a big talker and really just loves connecting with people. And I'm like a little bit more of like that person who's like in the background and doing my thing. So it was like, how do I get like her invigorated so that she's not just feeling like she has like no experience retail and suddenly she's like just running this retail environment. Because I was like, it became clear that I would have to continue to work like full time and back then I didn't work at Shopify. I can't even remember what I did back then, but yeah, so it was kind of one of those things where like the community engagement was super important to me, but also I knew it was kind of the key to getting her really kind of super engaged in an endeavor that otherwise she would have been like, I don't know if I know anything about this. So it was like, how do I capitalize on this? That part of the business was never really about, making money. We didn't make a lot of money with, workshops and community events and things like that. We did a lot of things that were free. But I think that it was very clear, like even with social media and kind of word of mouth, that was kind of the way to go, which was just like, how are you building your audience, and can we get people into our space through an event or for a workshop, and then, maybe they'll buy something, and maybe they won't.
Yeah.
But that was kind of the whole idea behind it.
I love that. And I love the focus on, you had these two powerhouse women of different kind of skill sets. And you guys basically said, okay, how can we make it where we're doing what we're best at and working together really well, it's just a really cool dynamic to see. Something that I love about Common People is your curation of products and how you guys really focus on bringing in unique pieces from creators and local artists. How do you go about sourcing and finding those products?
Yeah, so that was kind of like a hodgepodge, like right from the beginning. Things have changed a lot, even in 3 years, like in terms of like accessibility to like really kind of cool, interesting things. When we first started out, it was kind of like, okay, let's like legit go on Etsy and then filter by Canadian makers and then just message them and be like, hey, we're starting a shop. And the focus was Canadian, and the other big thing was we didn't want to bring in anything that we didn't want to own ourselves. If we felt like, that would fit into our lifestyle or our home or something that we would give somebody as a gift, then, that's to us kind of met the bar that we were setting at that point. So that was kind of like the first batch of it, was like really just scouring through Etsy. And then we did a little bit of Instagram as well. But, you kind of think like Instagram is really, really big now. But 3 years ago, yes, it was big, but not in the way that makers, especially local makers like in Canada, the way they do now. Now it would be so easy to just find like everybody through there. But that was like pretty much that. And then I think like, I don't know, some Googling, and like we visited some shops that were not super close to us. Like they were far enough away that it wouldn't be a problem for us to carry the same thing. If we were all the way on Queen West, we could carry something that somebody all the way on Queen East was carrying. But, you always have to be mindful of like your neighbors and things like that as well, because you're trying to all, get a piece, so to speak, of this like pie. And it's just like, okay, well, you already have this maker, you already have this maker. So like those people are off the table. So, so that was kind of the approach. And then over time, like we just found that people started emailing us and people started reaching out. We started going to little like trade shows and things like that. The National Stationery Show in New York City, we went to once, which was just amazing.
Cool.
Yeah. So, and it's hard. Like when you're in Canada, you don't have the same kind of plethora of goods to choose from. So it's taken a really long time for us to kind of really get down to kind of what we carry. Yeah.
Yeah. And you guys have a ton of inventory, obviously, then from lots of different curators. And you also have the physical retail space, but you guys have a really great online store. How do you kind of manage so many SKUs across both digital and physical and make sure that you're not, selling something online to someone who someone just bought in the store? How do you make sure that all stays consistent and kind of tracked well?
I mean, when we first started, we actually considered using a different like platform. I think we were thinking about like my partner had previously built something with Squarespace, and we didn't really know too much about POS systems that were accessible for small businesses. And we were like, yeah, let's just like get Square and we'll link it to Squarespace, thinking like it would all happen. And then somebody said to us like, no, you guys are crazy. Just get Shopify. Like, all right, fine. Let's try this. So, really, yeah, the answer is Shopify, and like it's going to seem like this was planned, but it really wasn't because, kind of going in, I've always been the person who manages the back end, and Kayla managed kind of the front end. So she really, went in there and, went with a theme. And then I think we're on like our third theme that we tried, and, messed around with like what she felt like really matched like our aesthetic, and what she kind of felt like was really going to be appealing to, our demographic. And then for me, it was kind of like, how do I manage the back end stuff, which was like, all the years of experience I have, which was like, managing inventory and the financial pieces and things like that. So, thankfully the integrated system has been an easy one for us to do. I can't even imagine like, had we tried anything else, because like, it's already so hard to like have a full-time job and run a business on the side. The last thing I would have needed was having like too many kind of things that I'd have to manage, but it's been pretty smooth. I would say, like, we haven't had any hiccups, which is nice.
Yeah. That integration it's so important because of kind of what I mentioned. You can have that situation where someone is shopping on the online store and they put something in their cart and they go to check out, but it's already been bought in store. And if you don't have a system that is talking to each other, then you've got a lot of customers that could potentially run into issues that are really not good situations. If someone's ready to buy a product, you want to have that product for them to buy.
Yeah, that, and like honestly, just moving really, really quickly. So if we've got an online order, like get to the floor like ASAP and like pull that, so that there's not somebody in the store who's now going to pick that up. But I mean, I think it's hard at the same time. It's not like we're selling stuff to the point where it's like flying off the shelves, and we're like, our number one concern is not, what if something sells and we don't have it, or the other person buys it at the same time. I mean, I've also found that a lot of our online sales actually happen when we're closed. So it's actually less of an issue. It's kind of weird, like we'll get, online orders at 4 a.m., 7 a.m. And I'm like, I don't even know, what are these people doing? Like, they're from Toronto. Why are they asleep? But, whatever. When you need a candle, you need a candle. What can you do?
You need a candle. Sometimes you wake up at 4 a.m. and you just need a new candle. I understand that totally. Now, to get a little serious, I know you guys have been hit pretty hard with COVID and the closures. Can you talk about your experience going through that with common people?
So, I guess when everything kind of closed down mid-March, I think we kind of closed maybe 3 or 4 days ahead of like, just society at large. And we were kind of like, okay, this doesn't feel right. There was other people that were taking that step without it being, mandated by the government yet. So anyway, we closed, and the first few weeks was scary, because as much as we'd been active online the whole time, we never really devoted a lot of resources or a lot of time into like marketing and really driving the online business, because we relied so heavily on people walking in. And if we had online sales, that was kind of like a bonus for us, but it was not the goal. And once the doors closed, we were like, oh crap. Like, this was like, we should have done something. We should have done something sooner. The first couple of weeks were pretty rough. After that, we kind of flew into kind of Mother's Day, which we do. We're really, that's a really big time for us. And I found like at that time, there was a very big focus on small businesses and supporting local, just for COVID in general, because people were starting to be hit by it. They were like, hey. So I think there was, a lot in the news, and there was like Mother's Day, which was great. And that kind of like was okay for a bit. And after Mother's Day, things kind of really took a turn. And, luckily we were able to kind of negotiate a little bit of a rent reduction with our landlord. This is before like the government announced anything. And none of the other government supports, actually, we didn't qualify for any of them. So that kind of sucked, because we were like, and it was very obvious that there was like this gap where like these micro businesses that are run by their owners weren't really entitled to any of the stuff that the government was coming out. We started like a GoFundMe campaign. We did a lot of stuff just to try to kind of keep the doors open. We reopened in June with everything else. And it's been pretty slow. So it's hard. Like, it's been pretty deflating, I would say, like in the last couple of months, especially. And, at this point, we're kind of looking at different things. One thing that I've really kind of committed myself to doing is working with somebody on kind of more strategic, like online marketing and things like that. Because going into the holiday and not knowing about like the second wave, are things going to close down again? We just can't, it's hard. We can't afford to do that, but we can't afford not to do that. And we're very much like towing the line of like, okay, if something doesn't change really, really soon, like we might have to close our doors like for good. And I don't want that to happen. Like I can't have that happen after, years of work and investment that we've kind of put into it. And we kind of, we're also kind of in, our sweet spot of our space right now. We're in a different place than when we first opened. We like moved 2 blocks up and in Parkdale. And this was kind of like the store that we always wanted to open. The first one was like really, really rushed. And this one, we like, we did custom fixturing and a lot of different things and really worked hard to get the vision there. And now to have people not really coming in to experience that, it's been a challenge for sure to try to like translate that in-store experience online, especially when like, I don't know, in the store we always have dogs and online we don't have dogs. So I don't know. I don't know what to do about that.
Yeah. And so you mentioned this real pivot onto the e-commerce side of it, which is, you had mentioned before, like, I wish we had done this earlier. I wish we'd been more prepared, but at least you are like, you have the know-how to say, okay, we've got to pivot online. We've got to shift. And I don't think a lot of brick and mortar owners really have that instinct to say, okay, we have to turn something else on. And the fact that you're already thinking so far ahead of, who knows if we're going to be closed again when the holiday season comes. So we can't depend on just foot traffic. Yeah. So with your online store, you have a beautiful e-commerce site. The experience is really good. You do all these gift guides and stuff. What channels are you trying to specifically focus on with your e-commerce store now that that's kind of your main focus?
Yeah, for sure. I think like, in subtle ways, we've always been kind of leveraging Instagram for sure. That's like our number one. And we've kind of done, the odd boosted post here or there, but never really fiddled too much with like ads for Facebook and things like that. So that's something that we're looking at. And after a few weeks, kind of, Kayla and I realized neither of us know enough about these things specifically to be able to experiment with it and do it in a way that we're at least going to be able to get like some measurable results. So, I'm looking at, talking to somebody who specializes in marketing, who used to work with Shopify. So, it will be for the most part focusing on like Facebook ads, Instagram. We're going to start there. That feels like right for us in terms of like our demographic and, where we already have like a large following. And we'll kind of go from there and see, does that mean we also have to explore Google and other things? But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully that should be something that probably the next few weeks we get going. So,
yeah. It's actually really good advice though. What you said was, you like with all of these opportunities on e-commerce and all these potential channels you could use, there's like email marketing and SMS marketing and ads and social media and content marketing. And it just gets so overwhelming because you don't know where to start. And I actually think you just gave a really important piece of advice, which you said, we focused on our current demographic and the people that we're already connected with, the people that are already engaging with our brand. We're going to start where they are, which for you guys is Instagram. And just being able to say, okay, we know our customers. This is a sneaky advantage of having a brick and mortar store, is that you already have these kind of relationships where you can say, okay, if I don't know where in the world to start, I'm going to at least start where I know we're winning. Yeah. And I can just go from there. It's a really strong piece of advice that I know you're in like a very tough time, but I want to pull out that you have a lot of natural insight into really making this work. And I think that's what set you up for so much success.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is also with Instagram is like, that's like really the bulk of like where we even do a lot of our, if an interaction with a customer is taking place and it's not in the store, it's on Instagram. People will say, when are you getting this back in stock? Oh, DM us. Like, oh, when are you getting this? Oh, just keep an eye on our Instagram. We'll post when it's back in stock. Like, and that's like always been the thing of like, just just message us there. And it's cool because, they'll follow us, we'll follow them, we follow their dogs' accounts too. And it's like, like we know people, there'll be like random days where, I'll be running the shop. I think, it happened a few days ago, and I messaged Kayla and I was like, oh, like Ella the dog just left. And she's like, oh, I love Ella the dog. And it's like, I don't even know the owner. I don't know what the owner's name is, but I absolutely know her dog.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's something like you can't get that online. So that's kind of the challenging piece, is like, how do you really kind of figure out the connection piece when you don't have that face-to-face interaction where you're kind of keeping up to date with the locals and people who are just walking by and people who just pop in and just say, hey, I'm not shopping today, but I just want to say hi. And that's kind of where we're at with our brick and mortar at this point. So yeah, trying to pivot to that online is like, it's a whole new world for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have any kind of plans in motion or any thoughts about how you guys are going to start to entice people to actually come into the shop now that you're open? Is it signage? Is it just Instagram? Is it telling people that you're open? Is it, possibly community events? I know then with you bring in the whole COVID conversation and bringing people into the space becomes hard. Do you have any thoughts on how you guys are going to kind of try to entice some more people to come in the near future?
We haven't really kind of gotten too much into it. In our previous space was a lot bigger than this one, which meant we used to do like a holiday market and a fall market every year. And that's just something that's not possible with our square footage, but also, COVID. So it might look like maybe doing like pop-ups and stuff with like local makers. We've done it in the past where like, instead of having like a full market in the shop, they get a table and, them comes their followers. And that's kind of one of the things that, we can definitely do. We've been talking to kind of different people about that and really kind of opening up even with our buying. I think we've like really been focusing on opening up like our consignment arrangements instead of wholesale. And what that does is it changes our relationship with our vendors, because you're talking to them way more frequently rather than just placing an online order that they're shipping out. And that's going to be an opportunity for us to say, hey, you know what, we've actually tested some of your stuff in store. Why don't you just come in, on a weekend and do a pop-up with like a table at the front or whatever. And then hopefully, like I said, like they'll bring their followers with them and it still gives us a chance to engage. We're not really doing too much outside of that. Like, we're doing whatever we've always been doing on Instagram and like trying to get creative with signage outside and like, do our best to come up with like interesting sandwich board sayings.
Yeah.
And, sometimes they work and people will say, hey, I came in, I loved your sandwich board. It's like the power of something so small sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is it comes down to those kind of minute details at the end of the day, which is why it's so hard to translate it online, is because there's those tiny details that are just hard to get into a journey online. Do you have an example, now I have to ask, of like your favorite sandwich board saying that you guys have put up?
That's tough for me to think of a favorite, but the one that we have up right now says something like, come in and see what it's like to like support local and support local makers instead of Jeff Bezos. And then it has like the Amazon arrow logo pointing into our shop. So
nice.
Like, it's not crafty, like it's not like nice looking. I didn't put any artistic ability in it, but it's enough to, drive home the message of like, we all know what it's like to have the the ease and accessibility of like Amazon, and also it's really tough because like the prices can't be beat. But then it's like it's about how do you really kind of tell the story of why is this better, and it is about local or Canadian or or supporting women or queer or whatever it is, and like keeping it kind of as local as possible and understanding that you're getting something kind of handmade and in a lot of cases one of a kind, and I don't know, whatever we can do to make that happen.
Yeah, I love that. And I love trying to bring home that message to the community of, come in here and experience what it's like to shop local instead of shopping Jeff Bezos. And it's a strong message too, because you're building on that. Come experience these people who have done amazing things. And we are here just to give you a space to explore it. And I love that. So just last question for you. We're asking every guest because it's called Resilient Retail. What does resilience mean to you, and what does it mean to Common People Goods?
Resilience is, to me, just kind of in the face of, anything, just coming through to the other side. And I think that's something that Kale and I have kind of gone through so many like ups and downs with Common People since we started it. And throughout all of it, there will always be the point where either she says to me or I say to her, it's okay. Like, we'll get through it. We always do. This sucks. Mm-hmm. We're in this like really crappy position right now, but we will get through it. We have always done it. Remember when this happened, we made it. Remember when this happened, we made it. And to me, like, that's resilience. So,
yeah. Yeah. And I love that you have a partner to kind of go on that resilient journey with you. But thank you so much, Steph, for coming and talking to us. I know it's been a really hard season for you guys, and to be able to come and share just very authentically how tough it really is going to be, I think, very inspiring and relatable for a lot of people listening. And that's so valuable to bring these stories to them. So I appreciate you sitting down with us and talking. And I guess I'll see you around the Shopify Slack.
Yeah, you will, for sure.